Rabbi.
Good afternoon.
We are in chapter 19. We have been learning the story of David HaMelech, King David, returning to the throne. He's heading back to Jerusalem. The tribes are accepting David's reign. They are regretting that they went after Avshalom. And David's own tribe, David arranged that his the Kohanim, Tzadok and Avyasar, they should speak to the elders of the tribe of Judah and convince everyone to accept David as king, accept him as king. And this way, it would be a true level of melech. Melech, we mentioned last time, is the concept of being accepted, being a king that's accepted and appreciated by the community, and rather than a moishel, who's a ruler who rules against everyone's wishes. So David wanted that level of melech, and he wanted the people to accept him as king. And David even makes some agreements and kind gestures to, like, for example, to Amasa. He tells him, Amasa was the commander-in-chief of Avshalom's army. And David HaMelech, in verse 14, he tells Amasa, he says, listen, are you not my bone and flesh? I want to make you the commander of the army before me always. And he uses the term Tachas Yoav. And Tachas Yoav, we translate it to mean he's either in place of Yoav or under Yoav. But he's giving him a very high position, and this is the commander-in-chief of the enemy army. So he's definitely looking to have the people come back and accept him as king. He's not looking to punish them. And we're in verse 16, and we're going to see a individual who we read about earlier, who had cursed David. His name was Shimei. He's going to now come back on stage, and he's going to want to get forgiveness because he's now nervous. He started a major, he started when David was first kicked out of his kingdom. This Shimei cursed David and was throwing rocks at him and stuff. And now it turns out that David is now the winner, and Shimei is going to need to ask forgiveness. So we're going to start at verse 16, and the verse begins, so the king returned and he reached the Jordan, and the people of Judah came to Gilgal to go and greet the king, to escort him across the Jordan. So the people of Judah are heading towards Gilgal. They came to Gilgal, and they want to greet the king. And as we've mentioned, the king is on the east side of the Jordan River. And some of the people are going over the river to greet the king on the other side of the river, and also to help the king's entourage travel back and return safely. So verse 17 is the story of Shimei. Shimei, the son of Gera, the Benjamite, in other words, from Binyamin, from the tribe of Binyamin. Now, keep in mind that Shimei was the leader of the Sanhedrin. He was a great scholar and very well respected. And he was from a city called Bachurim. He hastened and went down with the men of Yehuda to greet King David. So he now wants to, of course, ask forgiveness. So he's going, he's hastened to go, and he wants to wants to sort of like do something special for the king. So he's going to go first. He wants to be there like first. And with him, verse 18 is with him were 1,000 men from Binyamin. And he also brought along Tsiva. Tsiva. Tsiva was a servant that David HaMelech appointed for Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth was lame, and Tsiva we've read about a few times. Number one, Tsiva was the servant of Mephibosheth. David had appointed him to help out Mephibosheth, that Mephibosheth shouldn't, be always in hiding from him. Instead, should have some support from all his fields and so on. And Tsiva will work the fields and with his servants. So Tsiva was this servant of Mephibosheth. Now Tsiva did something really nasty. When David had to escape and run away, Tsiva came running to help to be with David, and he left Mephibosheth behind. And he made up a story that Mephibosheth wants to join Avshalom. And obviously the reason he did this was because he's hoping that if he joins David and he makes up a story against Mephibosheth, maybe he'll get all the property, or he'll benefit, he'll get like maybe a position. So he makes up this slanderous report against Mephibosheth. Now, Mephibosheth was the son of Yonasan, who was Mephibosheth was the grandson of Shaul HaMelech. So Tsiva made up the story, but there was room to believe maybe that it's possible, Mephibosheth is the grandson of Shaul. So, there's always that possibility that maybe he has thoughts of wanting to be king, or, he's angry that David is king. So anyway, Tsiva made up this story, this nasty story about Mephibosheth. Not only that, but he basically stole some of his master's supplies and brought it to David when David was on his escape. So there's a question as to how was David allowed to have that stuff. It ended up being stolen. It was not Tsiva's stuff. He took stuff from Mephibosheth basically, and was providing all the things that David left in a rush. So he didn't bring things that he needed. So Tsiva brought all this stuff for him, which he took, of course, from Mephibosheth, and he gave it to the king. So on the question of how he was able to do that, how is David able to take all the stolen goods? Basically, especially assuming that Mephibosheth was, according to the story that Tsiva had said, that Mephibosheth is against him. So obviously Mephibosheth was not giving his master these supplies to give to David. So the simple understanding is the king has the right to make hefker, to make ownerless the people's possessions, and therefore it wasn't considered stealing. But in any event, this is the story. And so David HaMelech likes Tsiva because David actually believed the slanderous report, the Lashon Hara, at least according to one opinion in the Talmud. The other opinion in the Talmud says that David had reason to believe that his report wasn't like believing the Lashon Hara, the gossip. He actually had reason that it was correct. So there's two views in the Talmud. But and according to the view that it was a slanderous report, the Talmud says that's the reason why David's kingdom ended up being divided. So it's not like there was a king, a descendant of David, that ruled over the entire Jewish people. After King Solomon, the kingdom was divided, and you always had two kings ruling over the Jewish people. And David's tribe, Judah, was with Benjamin, and the other 10 tribes had their own king. And why did David lose the kingship from all of his descendants, that they wouldn't be king over the entire Jewish people. According to one opinion, it's because of this story. This story where he accepted this gossip, he accepted this lashon hara about Mephibosheth from Tziva. So the thing is, David liked Tziva because Tziva brought him these supplies that he really needed. He was extremely in need of items when he fled, because he rushed and went in such a rush. So David was happy with Tziva. He even said an interesting line in when this original story happened, chapter 16. He said this line that everything that Mephibosheth owns is now yours. So there's two ways of understanding that. It possibly he was giving everything that Mephibosheth owned now to Tziva, and because he believed the lashon hara. The other option is that he didn't believe the lashon hara, and it was more on a condition that if it's true what you're saying, then everything that Mephibosheth owned will be yours if it's correct what you're saying. So it could be it was said on a condition, or it could be that it was a real gift. And so David obviously had this appreciation for Tziva. So now Shimei is trying to get forgiveness. So who should he bring along to make the king happy? And if the king is in a happy mood, he's going to say, oh, don't worry about what you did wrong to me. I forgot it already. It's not applicable anymore. It's over and done with. We're now on we're turning the page. We're on a new clean slate. Well, who should he take with him? So Shimei takes with him this Tziva, because the king was like happy, with Tziva. Tziva joined him. Everyone else went after Avshalom. Tziva came to him, and he didn't even, follow his master, Mephibosheth. He went straight to David, and he even gave him all the supplies he needed. So Shimei brings Tziva with him, and Tziva, we're in verse 18 over here. With him were 1,000 men from Benjamin. So Shimei took 1,000 men from Benjamin, and Tziva, the attendant of the house of Shaul, with his 15 sons and 20 servants, and they forded the Jordan to go before the king. So they went over the Jordan River in order to help out the king, and they're going to bring the king's wives and children and help the whole group cross. So they're going to greet them on the east side of the Jordan River. When the ferry crossed over, to bring across the household of the king and do whatever was proper in his eyes, Shimei, the son of Gera, fell before the king as he was crossing in the Jordan. So Shimei is now going to beg the king. He said to the king in verse 20, let my lord not consider it an iniquity for me, and do not remember that which your servant sinned on the day when my master the king left Jerusalem, that the king should take it to his heart. So in other words, Shimei is asking the king not to take it seriously. Don't consider it an iniquity. Don't remember it. This that I sinned. For your servant knows that I have sinned, and that here I have come today, first among all the house of Joseph, to come down and greet my master the king. And what this means is that he has come first among all the house of Joseph. What is the house of Joseph? So on a simple level, the house of Joseph refers to the house of Rachel. Rachel had two sons, Joseph and Benjamin, and Joseph had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and Shimei is from the house, from the tribe of Benjamin. So Benjamin is this tribe from Rachel, from Rachel. And Rachel, all of Rachel's children are called the house of Joseph. So what he's saying is, I have come first from the house of Joseph to greet you, and I'm begging you for forgiveness. Why is he emphasizing the house of Joseph? So the commentaries bring a medrash. The medrash says that what do we know about how Joseph acted to his brothers? Well, we know that his brothers acted very rough, mean, cruel, evil, merciless. To Joseph. What did Joseph do in return to them? Joseph repaid all the bad with good. He was kind to his brothers. He even supported them for the many years that they were in Egypt, that he was alive. He supported them. He brought them, had them on at his table. He paid for their travel all the way to Egypt. He got them houses, and supplied all their needs. And he didn't bear a grudge. So Shimei is telling the king, he's reminding him about this great deed that Joseph did, and saying, if you do the same thing, it will be very smart for you, because you have the entire nation that was following Avshalom, and if you act good to me and act kind to me, so people will be happy to join you after they left Avshalom, after Avshalom died. They're going to be happy to join you. They'll join you happily. But if you are cruel to me, they are going to be very nervous how you're going to act to them, because they also followed Avshalom. So basically, he's bringing up the story of Joseph to bring out how Joseph acted, hoping that David HaMelech will act similarly. Another point that, another way of understanding the house of Joseph is that there are two verses in the whole Tanakh that emphasize the Jewish people being the people of Joseph. And so it's referring to not just the tribe of, not just the people of Rachel, in other words, Rachel's children, the tribes that come from Rachel, but really it refers to the entire Jewish people. Actually, that fits. I should rephrase this. There's 2 points that have to be mentioned here. Number one, we have the medrash that emphasizes Joseph, how Joseph acted. Number two, we have the fact that the entire Jewish people were basically following Avshalom. And what Shimei is telling David HaMelech is that if you think about all the people that are, potentially going to rejoin you, David, it would be smart for you. In other words, if you think about the entire house of Joseph, meaning the entire Jewish people, it would be smart for you to have mercy on me and treat me kindly, because the entire Jewish people will benefit. You'll benefit from the entire Jewish people rejoining you. So that is the that would be the meaning of this verse. So so he brings up. So again, Shimei is doing all he can to try to get the best out of David. So he rushes there first. He brings 1,000 people from Benjamin to join, accept David as king. He brings Tziva, who's the brought food to David and other supplies, and they come and Shimei now begs the king for forgiveness, and he brings up the story of Joseph, either just the fact that it's the fact that he's coming first as from all the house of Joseph, he's rushing to him, and he's reminding him about how Joseph acted to his brothers, and he's reminding him about the entire Jewish people, that they are all called Joseph and they want to rejoin you, and if you treat me kindly, they'll also be happy to come back. So he's doing all of these preparations. He's prepping the situation in order to get good results. Yes, Anna.
I would like to know all other tribes besides Judah and Benjamin, who they were following. I'm sorry I missed it. Who was their leader?
It seems that all the tribes were basically following Avshalom, at least large portions of the tribes. He was very charismatic and very influential in PR. He's a great PR guy, and he really marketed himself very well.
And after he died, who was actually their leader?
So they're in the midst of coming back to David, but they're also nervous because David might want to punish them.
Yeah, hold it against them. Okay, I see.
Hold it against them. Exactly.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that's what's going on here. So he said to the king, let my lord not consider it. So where are we up to? Verse 22. Now Avishai, the son of Tzruya, then spoke up and said, shall Shimei not be put to death despite this apology? For he has cursed the anointed one of Hashem. So Avishai, who's David's nephew, points out that, David, let's just kill this guy. Let me just chop off his head. Despite his apology, he should be put to death. And if you remember from where the Shimei was cursing in verse 16, verse 9 over there said, Avishai, the son of Tzruya, said to the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? I will go on ahead and take off his head. So initially, going back 6 months, the beginning of this rebellion. So Avishai was the one who wanted to kill Shimei. Now, 6 months later, when the rebellion is over, Avishai says again, let's put him to death. And again, David then said, what does it matter to me or to you, O sons of Tzruya, that you should be an adversary unto me today? Shall a man of Israel be put to death today? For do I not know that today I am king over Israel? And that's a very interesting line. Do I not know that today I am king over Israel? So there seems to be some type of dialogue here between David HaMelech and Avishai about killing Shimei ben Gera. And it seems that Avishai has a claim. There is a Gemara that tells us that a king is not allowed to be moichel on his kavod. A king cannot give in to his kavod, and let go of his honor. And so Avishai has a somewhat of a claim that you're not allowed to you're not allowed to forgive. You have to punish this person, because by you forgiving him, you're basically you're letting up on what's necessary for you to be to act in a kingly way. And that seems to be Avishai's claim. David somehow feels that doesn't apply here, that normally a king cannot forego on his honor. he can't forgo on his honor. In other words, this was an act that was really against his honor. It was Shimei had cursed him, had pelted him with stones. So this is an act that at least Avishai thinks was really an act of dishonor to the king. And here David says, no, for some reason, David feels this is not an issue, and it's not going to be fall into the category that a king is not allowed to forego on his honor. And instead he says, what does it matter to you? Which means, like, what harm does it do to us? Or why would you want to do something against my will? But here we have also an interesting line, and that is that today I am king over Israel. Why is he saying that today I am king over Israel? What does that mean? Today I am king over Israel. So Rashi over here, it brings down an interesting point. He says that when initially Shimei came and cursed me, I started having questions because Shimei is the head of the Sanhedrin. He's giving a verdict. I am in the midst of being judged. And if Shimei says that I am not a king, guess what? I am not a king. So David questioned his eligibility, his rights to be the king, because such a great person as Shimei would not have done such a thing unless it's correct, and unless there was such a proper ruling. And so if that's the fact that I lost my kingship, so I have lost my kingship. Now that Shimei is asking forgiveness, what this means is that all that I was nervous of all along is now kosher. I have come to the conclusion that I did deserve to be a king, because he's regretting that that I shouldn't be a king. He initially told me I don't deserve to be king. So he initially had told that chopped off, had said my kingship has been removed, is over. And now that he's regretting it, he's saying that, you know what, your kingship all along was correct. So what that means is that I have come to the conclusion today it's been revealed that I really am a king. I wasn't sure. To me, I questioned it. And now I came to the conclusion that I actually am king. So on the day that I'm king, it wouldn't be right for me to go and punish punish people. This is like my day of inauguration. Okay, we're gonna stop here. I'm gonna give over the mic to Rabbi Wernick.
Thank you. How is everybody? Everyone had a good Shabbos?
Baruch Hashem.
Oh, Hashem.